So cute.
No.
It works.
Thank you.
I was actually gonna say, you do look like just somebody you wanted to interview, and I'm very okay with that.
Mayor, we should be live on YouTube right now.
Oh, wait, is this? There's,
Okay, welcome to the North Logan City Council Truth and Taxation Meeting for August 21st, 2024. Just a point of procedure, we will be doing our opening business in this meeting, and then have a completely separate meeting for city council. So do we need to wait, Marie? Okay. We will excuse Buzzy tonight. He is traveling for work out of the state. So let's start with a Pledge of Allegiance led by Joni, after which I will say the opening prayer.
Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful to gather today as a city and to be blessed as a city with a great place to live. We're thankful for the water that we received in the past week and for the place that we get to call home. We ask that thou would please bless us as we consider the issues on the agenda tonight, that we can do so with clarity and that we can also do so with civility, and ask that thou would please bless us to consider those things with objectivity. And we ask these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so we will jump right into adopting tonight's agenda. Okay, we have a motion by Emily,
Second.
second by Joni. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. We will jump right into the current action items. The first of which is a public hearing to receive public input on a proposed property tax increase that may be included in the fiscal year 2025 municipal budget. The city council may consider approval of a resolution implementing a property tax increase following the public hearing. So this is what, the third time that we've discussed this, but Alan, if you want to give a little bit of background information.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you how much in depth you want me to go on the overview. We've gone over this a couple of times. I don't know if I need to go over how property taxes work. I think everyone's got that down by now. Maybe we'll jump down to a reason. Basically right now, in that first meeting or in the June meeting, the public hearing, when you discussed this, you talked about a max or a cap of 7.5. But the discussion right now is more centered on a 4.98% increase. And that's what's been advertised and sent out for this public hearing. That would be the cap, the max that you could consider in this meeting. And looking through that, if you look at, well, basically what this is the average home value. This just sounds remarkable, but the average home value is $648,000. I think when we started doing this 4 or 5 years ago, it was 250. So that is the average home in North Logan. And if you just go down the column, the North Logan City's portion of that is 362, a 4.9% increase. Would be about a $17 increase, $17.46 for the average home. And so the anticipated increase to the general fund would be about 76,000. And then the reason North Logan City is considering this, the other reason that we need to look into increasing property taxes is we're about 203,000 short from balancing right now. If we can get that closer to around 50 to 100,000, we're usually okay throughout the year because most budgets stay within their budget. And then also we have depreciation dollars that makes up the difference. And so we need to get to about that amount. Where would the property taxes go? Fire and EMS, police, and streets are the three main areas where we're experiencing increases, large increases, and that we will have to look at where these potential property taxes increases will not be used. We need to clarify that as well, but this is just more of an education process. Common questions by the public and valid questions. Are these going to be used for any of the new buildings we're seeing? So this amazing new city office, the answer is no. The community center, the answer is no. So none of the new buildings will this be used to handle the bond or any of the property taxes will be used for the building of these buildings. The other one is with the new solid waste. So when Logan decided not to provide solid waste anymore, we had to go with a private contractor. Some cities do use their general fund to subsidize the garbage. That is not what North Logan City is going to use their property taxes for. And so just so you are aware of those different items. Some people ask, are their property taxes high or low in North Logan? A lot of that is depending upon your property and how it's assessed by the county. But overall, the rate, if you're just looking at what the property tax rate is, which is what is determined by the city council, the answer is no. We are well below average on our general purpose property tax. In fact, most cities are about, you look through this, there's 200% in here, meaning they are double what our general purpose property tax rate is. And that combined with our library property tax, we are still below average in the county. How do we do this? You can just look at the bottom. We focus on economic development. You saw down there, 76,000 is what this property tax will bring in, this increase. One or two businesses equals that. And so that's why we stress that. And then just flat out grants and donations. North Logan has received 12 million in grants and 12.4 million in donations. I don't know how to explain that or put that in perspective, but that's nearly 10 times any other city in the valley, and more than just about any city in northern Utah. So those are the things that we do. We try to be very fiscally sound, very fiscally responsible, and then we obtain those grants. And that's what keeps the property taxes below average in Cache County. That's a general overview. I didn't know if you wanted me to go into more detail on any certain aspect of this, but generally we need to explain why this is coming before, what it entails, and why it would go, or sorry, what we would do with those property taxes if they come in.
If you'll indulge me in an ancillary matter, also, this is the first year that many of our citizens won't be paying a cemetery property tax that will probably exceed the reduction of their taxes will probably exceed on average what they would have paid in the past. So
Yeah, some people may still not be familiar with that. They need to look at their property tax statement. The mayor worked very hard on this. It was about 20 years coming, but it is the north quarter portion of North Logan City that kind of meandered through the north half. They were in the Hyde Park Cemetery District. And so it took from the inception of North Logan City Cemetery, which started about 2006 or 7, until last year to remove them from that cemetery maintenance district. It was a tough chore. But yeah, they need to notice that because that could be anywhere from, I think it was around 40 to 60 to 80. Some even exceeded $100 per year to that cemetery maintenance district.
yeah. Questions from the council on this?
Yeah, I was just wondering, the table on the second to last page here, why do we break out the library tax from the general operation tax? We've got the two columns there.
Mhm.
The first column, the second column makes us look very affordable. The first column, not so much with the library, but all of our citizens do pay the library tax, right?
Yes, it's a dedicated library property tax. So it's a separate property tax, but that hasn't changed in, well, several years. But if you're just looking at the general purpose, which is what this tax is that we're talking about tonight,
Oh, okay.
that's one that is very, very low considering all the other cities. And this is, keep in mind, this is a year and a half outdated. This is the latest data we have from the county. But if you were to incorporate even last year, we would be even further because we didn't have a property tax increase last year. And several cities in the valley last year held the rate. Some of them not knowing what holding the rate means. Holding the rate doesn't mean that you're not doing a property tax increase. Holding the rate means that you're doing about it's between an 8 and 25% increase in property taxes. And so that's why a lot of cities have really leapfrogged and gone very high. They've gone 25 to 50 to 100% higher than what we charge in our rate for property taxes because of those things.
Other questions, follow-ups?
On
Well,
the,
oh, go ahead, Mark.
I'm pushing it.
I'll push
There
it
you go.
again. Is
It's
that
on.
better?
Yep.
Thought I was doing it right. Sorry. On the 12.1 and the 11.4 in the grants reference, grants and the donations we received. Were those used for one-time expenditures or because the question is, are we going to see that continue or are we going to find a situation where those don't come in and then we're going to be dealing with and need to increase taxes?
That's a really good question because when you go through, some of these donations were contingent upon the city's ability to carry things forward after the donations were given, the ability to pay for them going forward. To answer that pretty plainly, a lot of these were one-time capital improvements
Okay.
that all they require in the future is maintenance. So a road. So
So like cog awards. And so that's just going to be variable depending on what we propose. We've asked for what? 7 million in cog
yeah, 7 million
projects this year.
alone.
And that's just, you can't, none of them are on a ongoing basis where it
That-
says.
That's
you know,
helpful. So we didn't incur a long-term expense using these one-time funds. We dealt with a project with the one-time funds and we may
Correct.
fund future projects with future one-time funds, but we haven't
Yeah.
created a 12.1 and 11.4 million dollar need every year.
Right.
Okay.
That's a good question. A
And,
lot of them were
uh,
wraps.
Wraps, and then there's also
Fog.
Deloy Hansen. So,
Yeah.
$4 million we're not going to have a $4 million expense every year, fortunately.
But another example is like the Elk Ridge turf fields. So we got a $1.2 million donation for those Elk Ridge turf fields. So they're one-time donations.
For a one-time job.
One time.
And so it isn't going to be a recurring expense that we're
Yeah.
going to have to cover with a future increase. Okay.
Yep.
Good question, Mark. We'll have some more time to discuss this after we get some public input. Any other things preliminarily? Okay, then let's open it up for a public hearing. Just the rules for that. Please state your name for the record, speak to the microphone so your comments can be recorded. Limit your statements to 2 minutes. If you're speaking on behalf of others, you may ask the chairperson for more time. Please phrase your opinions in the form of statements, not questions. A public hearing is your opportunity to express your opinions to the city council. It's not a time to ask questions and expect dialogue. Please address your comments to the council, not to the public. The council may ask questions about your comments in order for them to better understand you. In the future, note that if you have questions or need to discuss an issue, you may meet with city council members or appropriate city staff members before the public hearing where dialogue can take place. You may provide a written statement. You may read the statement or summarize it with the 2-minute limit. You may provide a copy of that statement to the city recorder, who will make copies for the city council. And that statement will become part of the public record, but will not be included in the minutes of the meeting. So with that, we'll open up to a public hearing. Okay, seeing no comments, we will close the public hearing. Any follow-up questions from the council based on those comments?
Tons.
Okay, Alan, so procedurally, is our next step deciding the exact amount?
Yes.
Okay. And I would say just that we've all talked about 4.98 as the kind of sweet spot of not too much, not too little. So that would be my suggestion, but let's hear where you guys are on that.
Alan, that still doesn't close our gap. So how do we close the gap from assuming
It gets
we
us-
would pass that increase?
It probably gets us close enough. We'll still look at some of the projects, and if we aren't getting close enough, we can just not do a couple of the smaller capital improvement projects on that list. Meaning like a roads project or something else. It's one of those decision factors where we have to go in, and if it's not an impact fee related road, for example, I'll just give you an example right off the bat. If you're up on the bench, Naomi Drive, it's a road that was private that was turned over to the city. The city really wouldn't do that today, but we did nonetheless. So we have that road. It was not developed to any standard. It falls apart. It has issues with stormwater. It's on the docket right now to repair that. But if we don't have enough money, we would either pare down the project and do it over 2 years, or we would just not do it completely and wait till the next fiscal year. So yes, key elements in there, we would just have to decide because we're not going to go over budget.
assuming we're gonna continue to see increases in our valuations, how do we be proactive in addressing the increased disparity between commercial property values and residential property values
The
and their level of taxation? Because
the 1 year, and Scott pointed that out as well, like there was 1 year where North Lone City was the only city that was looking at this. It was very frustrating at that time. We were the only city noticing these drastic increases that were coming down the pike. Because normally the assessments come out, they increase every year. They would say they could decrease or increase. I've never seen a decrease, but they increase. The rate goes down to compensate for that. The 1 year that didn't work, was a year that the businesses, they did not increase at all. And so the burden of that tax came on the backs of the residents of the community. We haven't seen that as drastic since that 1 year. I think that was 2021 or 2022 when we saw that drastic increase and the commercial just didn't increase. Now what you're seeing is we're seeing commercial property increase similar to residential property taxes. And so you won't see an increased burden. And most people's bill, residential or commercial, should be relatively the same.
okay,
We have seen some commercial properties though where the county is now taxing them. They're going from like a green belt and they're taxing them at their assessed value, from out of nowhere. And so that we have heard from our businesses and we've referred them to the county, but where they've gone from $50 to $40,000 in 1 year. So now they're working with the county on that. That just seems like a little bit too drastic to me, where they need to basically sit down and work out something with them. But yeah, this year we're not seeing that as much.
okay.
Okay, do I have a motion from the council on amount, or do you guys want to speak about this more?
I guess, I'll just throw out one more thought. I am concerned, and I don't know what to do about this, but it seems like there are costs that we're covering that we don't have a lot of control over. Like the three biggest areas that you talked about, fire, police, and roads. I know there's a lot of stuff driving that, but is there a way to get a handle on those costs so that we're not looking at budget shortfalls every year and tax increases?
Roads are the ones that we do have discretion over. So we just have to pick projects on there that we are going to do. Roads have not seen an increase in their budget in 4 or 5 years. But the other two are kind of just built on a pattern. They only have minimal increases this year of 3%, 4%, or 5% at most. And so really what it boils down to is really that selection of which road projects we do. The others are more automatic, unless we want to do a massive discussion about reduction, but it's not very feasible at this point.
And Kenny, that's kind of part of our tasks on the police commission is to see, and you've seen that we've worked really hard about that. And I don't know, it's a great question. I appreciate you bringing it up because I think it's something that, keeps us all up at night, especially with inflation, that, there are just some costs that are not variable, they're not, they're just necessary costs. So it's a great question to raise. I would love if you found the answer to that because I haven't
don't.
figured it out.
I don't have a lot of good answer. I've talked to more citizens than I realized that are really on tight budgets. So even just this increase, the $17 per household or whatever we calculate that out to be on average is tough for some people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is hard because it's not just $17 from us. It's the gas that goes up. It's the food that's gone up. It's the county that's increased. It's just everything.
Right.
So it would be nice if it didn't have to be as high. And I haven't maybe done as well of a job as I could have to look at everybody's budgets, but there are areas, I know a couple of years ago, spending on some things. I don't know what the city requires for different departments if they're purchasing things, are there some things we can live without? We lost an ambulance? Was that? So I know that there's was there an ambulance that just had a crash? that Logan?
That was Logan City.
Logan
that
City,
had
so
a
that's not,
crash.
so, but there are things that come up that it's nice that we have some money put aside for it. And I guess that's hopefully our job is to make sure we're positioned that way.
Yeah, and I think that that's certainly a role that we have in the budget presentations, and I think we've really scrutinized that. I think, I'm sorry, I'm kind of losing my voice, but I know that's something that we've scrutinized with each budgetary season, where we're saying we need you to be as efficient as possible. We've certainly done that with um public safety. Library has gotten super efficient, streets. I think we've heard them talk about how they've gone from um they've really shifted the focus to maintenance rather than replacement. And so I think we're trying on that front. I am open to suggestion, certainly. And but particularly during the budget discussions, I would love if that were kind of that was a lens through which we viewed those budget requests to say, look, we're writing a check right now that we're gonna have to back. But I think, Alan, I appreciate you bringing up the grants portion of that, because I think that's really been, when we see that we need water infrastructure, that's a need. We're in a really tricky position. And I think we've all been scrambling. I think Jordan and Alan particularly have done a great job at really trying to chase down every bit of money that we can from state and federal sources. And I think by all measures, the city's done a great job at that. But, it's just this confluence of really hard things, that we have the inflation that we're working against. And I appreciate that too. What Kenny brought up, that this is, $17 is a lot. It can mean a lot to people. So I'm glad that the council's not treating that lightly. But I think the best thing that we can do is to say, we generally have a policy of being very conservative in our spending. And if you ever find, ways to be more efficient and to save money, I'm all ears. And I think the department heads are as well.
I think the department heads, just as a point of procedure with them, it's really tough because they're very critical of themselves, obviously with their budgets. To put it in perspective, probably the way to go about it with the department heads is when they come up to do their budget presentations, first recognize what they've done, and then always they'll welcome any scrutiny you have. Like if there's ways to do things more efficiently, they will jump on it. They will weigh anything every year. Each of them have done that over the past several years. But a case in point as to why you might want to walk a fine line in doing that is because there's cities with a fifth or a sixth the amount of parkland in the valley that have the same parks budget that we do. Put it in perspective, another city to the south of us has the exact same amount of parkland, and their budget is 4 to 5 times what our budget is for parks. Rec is more drastic. We lead the rec by, if you add up all of the rec from all the cities and USU and all of their events, that equals North Logan City. And our rec is actually the 4th largest funded department in the valley, behind 3 other cities. So it's pretty drastic how efficient some of these departments are being, but there's always a way to do things better. They will always look for ways to look to save, to bring in more revenue, bring in more grants, and lower expenses. So yeah, always but the time to do it is during those budget presentations to really scrutinize at that time.
And I understand. I think everybody that's in this room, we know each other. We've seen your budgets. We've seen improvements with new employees that have been brought in. And so for us, it's not as hard to see it, but I feel like someone driving down the road and seeing brand new building doesn't understand the gift that was received. So the education part of just telling people, that there's wonderful donations that have been given and there's grant money. So, but when they see that their taxes go up, I feel like some of the conversation that we've heard prior or even just now is, well, why is this going up? So it's great that we know, but now I guess it's us just letting people understand a better picture of why why we need to do this.
The other thing to point out to all the residents is, yes, an increase is occurring, which we never want to see, but obviously, the league recommends doing this. We don't see what other cities have done where they've done 50 to 100% increases in 1 year. There's several cities that have done that to their citizens, and we've basically never gone over 5 to 6 to 7% max. And over the last 8 years, if you look at it, the average is about 2 to 3%. So not even inflationary is where we've been over the last 8 years. So you mentioned something that's very valid where every utility seems to go up over that time and just cost of living seems to increase. But North Logan's increase in property taxes is well below inflationary at that point, if you average it out.
Yeah, that's a good point. Your point too. I think we've been putting things about this in the newsletter so that people so that this information's there. You can lead a horse to water. It's tough in that way, but I know that we've had quite a few posts about this and in the newsletter. So we can always direct people to that as well. Okay.
Another question you referenced in the fire EMS and police. You described a significant increase in the number of fire and EMS calls and a drastic increase in number of police related calls. Can we identify any disproportionate area or businesses that are driving those and then look at fee structures to help not have the rest of us subsidize those if there's a disproportionate draw?
So, great question, Mark. So we looked into this. What was happening about 5 or 6 years ago is we were looking at fire and EMS. We had a volunteer fire department, and it was being pushed to a point where they couldn't handle all of the calls. It was very difficult.
And that was because of a drastic increase in EMS calls at a facility that couldn't by federal law help individuals that have fallen and can't get up.
You had employees working 80-hour weeks, volunteers and others trying to keep up with the demand, which was just ridiculous. So we looked at every option under the moon and how we could keep up with that. And when we looked at it, we came to the same conclusion that you came up with. How do we, instead of taxing all the citizens across the community, it was really just disproportionately used by 4 or 5 different areas. Yeah, it's across the community wide that calls do occur, but it was disproportionate for certain ones. So we asked other cities what they had done, so we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. And there was what was called a disproportionate business license fee.
Mhm.
And so that was implemented. And we saw for 2 businesses, their call volume dropped to a quarter of what it had beforehand. One stayed right on course. And they just pay a very, very large disproportionate business license fee. I think it approached 60,000 last year. They paid in disproportionate business license fee. And then with police, the thing that we haven't fully implemented, we had to do a study. So we've had the study about 3/4 of the way through. We've never fully implemented it. It was done by Zion's Public Finance. But police, it would be, it's a little bit more difficult because it's not specific businesses that are really that large of a tax. I mean, certain large big box do have more calls, but it's more like certain residential complexes.
Yeah.
So we'd have to implement a good landlord licensing program at that point and then include that as a portion of business license. So we've never fully implemented that. The negatives associated with that we were scared about were people that would be scared to ever call 911. So the businesses should never be scared because they get 2 or 3 freebies, or they get 1 freebie a month. Then they like, meaning they'll never go over for the average business. But a resident, we were worried if there's a domestic dispute incident or something else, and they were scared to call 911 that somehow a fee would come back to them.
They'll get evicted.
It would go to the apartments themselves, but we were worried that somehow they might pass that on to the residents or something like that. That was the only negative. That was the reason that we kind of pumped the brakes on that regard. But it's probably something that we should look into and see if there is something that we can implement, because then certain complexes, what happens at that point, they do a lot more scrutiny of residents coming in to live.
Or hire their own security.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
It just-
Businesses and the residents will hire their own security. That's a good point, Mayor. something to look into. If
We
you want me
haven't
to-
done that with, so what I hear you saying is we haven't addressed disproportionate business license to
Police.
to complexes or for the
They've
police
s-
side of things, just for
They've
Fire
studied
and
it.
EMS.
Fire.
We got about
EMS.
3/4 of the way through the study for police. And so if you would like, I can push that study through and just see what the results of that might be, and we could discuss it. at City Council.
Let's chat about that. I think that might be good. But I think it'd be good if we, get on the same page about that and maybe, I'm sure Chief would be happy to, meet and chat about, what that looks like. But I think these are good ideas to kind of, let's look at all facets of trying to bear the costs that we're facing.
Yeah, and police, to Chief's credit, he wasn't around for this. They got caught up in an arms race. So every police department was trying to see if they could be the highest paying police agency. And it went statewide and it got really rough. There were people that stood up with the Utah League to say, stop what you're doing. This is hurting everyone involved. Because they would raise their rates every time. And they'd say, no matter what you do, Salt Lake City is going to pay more than whatever you can come up with. And it was happening. So it kind of pumped the brakes on the arms race, and it became more of a question of we need to compensate police and compensate them fairly, but it's not an arms race between the cities. And so that slowed down at that point, and the chief has been very fiscally conservative in looking at his budget. The last few years, we haven't seen the drastic increases of 10-15% that we were seeing every year.
Okay. Are we ready now to make a motion? What are you guys thinking?
Yeah, I'm ready. I make a motion that we approve the resolution implementing a property tax increase as listed.
So is that a 4.98?
That I was gonna say calculated 4.98 increase.
Okay. All right. Do I have a second on that?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion by Emily, second by Kenny. Discussion on that motion. Okay, then I will take a vote. All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you all for the discussion on that. I think you're very thoughtful and I appreciate the perspectives that you guys have. I would entertain a motion to adjourn this truth and taxation.
so
meeting.
moved.
Motion by Emily,
Second.
second by Kenny. All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Okay, do we need to motion into this meeting or can we start it?
I don't think
Okay.
we've ever. yeah.
We are now welcome to our North Logan City Council meeting for August 21st, 2024. I would entertain a motion tonight to adopt the agenda.
so moved.
Motion by Emily.
Second.
Yes, you guys are a great team. Second by Kenny. All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. We have some meeting minutes. Okay, August 7th, regular and closed session. I've looked over those and given, I think, minor changes to, not any. Okay, then I didn't have any. I have looked over them. Anyone else have any changes? Okay, then I'd accept a motion on that.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Mark,
second.
second by Emily. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. We have our recognition of our exemplary staff member. Today, that is that, it's not Mary Corey.
Danny Larson.
Where is that? Am I in the wrong spot? Hold on just a sec. I am in the wrong meeting. Sorry about that. Where am I? Okay. So that is Danny Larson. Danny Larson has always been a great asset to the recreation department. She's very creative and always helping out others. She's continually coming up with new event ideas that make it really fun for the community. We're grateful for the rec department and for all the hard work that they do. I get their emails and just really appreciate how well they run everything. So let's give Danny a hand of applause. Okay, let's move on to follow up on issues from previous meetings and review of action.
Okay, I'll quickly go through these. One item I keep forgetting There is a screen up there. Is it working?
Yeah.
Is it functioning?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's kind of an experimental. I should have said this before the meeting even started. That will mirror what's up on this screen.
That's been
Um,
incredibly nice.
Okay, so we'll look into that and if you guys like that, or if you have edits to that, or want to change the actual device itself, they'll put them for each of the different stations. Um,
There- It is nice
okay,
for people with bad eyes like me. If I don't have my right contacts and I do look squinty, so this was very pleasant.
perfect.
I guess everybody else has better eyes than me though, so. They, they haven't actually got to really utilize it. It's really been me and Joni.
I've
So
noticed
I
that.
actually think if we did this again and we want to test it out, we should put it over by them so they can see it.
Okay.
But it's exactly what's up there. It's just on the smaller screen.
So that is, if it is determined that this is useful, we would duplicate that 2 or
Yeah.
3 times up here, so.
Yep.
Okay.
No, it's just on the screen. So going through, if you want that, if you want any edits, just let us know. Jumping through these other things, sorry, that was kind of the final checklist for the city office. That's why I brought that up. Right now you can see what's going on out here. They're basically doing the underground, the footings, and foundation they'll start on, over on the knuckle is what they call it, the elbow before they come over to the community center. And then they're just grading out the site. They'll do underground utilities soon as well. They've started those. And then we just need to do fundraising at that point. Up at our new well, they need to tie in that into the system. Hopefully they'll start on that soon. Jordan might know. So that, yeah, that's coming up very quickly. We'll talk about the Division of Drinking Water loan. We've already talked about that. We'll have another public hearing required by the state at the next meeting. So just so you're aware regarding that, and that will help us with all these other capital projects that we have on the docket for our water system. Sewer, same thing, sewer master plan updates. And then we'll start on 2 or 3 of the major trunk line segments this next year. Streets, they will be doing the fog seal. So a lot of people call it a chip and seal. It's actually just a chip seal. And then the cities have the option later on to come back and do what's called a fog seal over the top. So you can either leave the chip seal as is, that is the whole operation. But what they do is they sometimes come along and it's quasi an aesthetics thing, but also it does provide a little bit of seal for the road. But they'll come do that black coat that goes over the top of the chip seal that they previously put down. And so they'll be doing that this next 26 and 27. Is that Tuesday and Wednesday of this next week? I think it is. Monday and Tuesday. So Monday and Tuesday they'll be doing that, and then they'll also go out and they'll do a treatment on any path we've got throughout the city. So in the parks, we have asphalt paths. We have some that go along roadways, 3100 North, going up the canyon. They'll come and treat those as well, meaning they'll put a seal coat on those.
I got a question from someone about when they're going to be starting on the 27th on 12th East. Do you have any sense of when they're going to be starting?
Are you talking fog seal on 2700?
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be, I believe that's Tuesday. The fires should have gone out. They're going out tomorrow. They'll get a door hanger and then they'll also get
And they'll tell them like what more specific. Okay.
specify the time and
Oh, okay,
we'll have
perfect.
staff out. So,
Okay, I'll pass that along.
Yep. but they should get a door hanger probably tomorrow.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Great question, Mayor. And then they usually do some parlance as well. They'll do specific to those areas, some parlance on those. And then they're doing some sidewalk and curb and gutter repair and asphalt patching. They'll also be doing once all these things are done, they'll stripe all the roads. You've probably seen them out doing, we do this in-house, but we paint a lot of the intersections, the directional arrows, the crosswalks. They've been doing that throughout the summer on these roads that will not have a fog seal. So watch for those. Stormwater, they're doing their annual report, and we have to update probably our Title 13, our stormwater, according to House Bill 507. They've had some minor changes that came out. We just need to make sure we're compliant with those for stormwater. So we'll work on that in the coming weeks and months. Engineering, obviously the 2850 North project, that's the one that's west of Main Street. So they'll probably start on that in the coming weeks once that plat is signed. That's what we need at this point. It involved 4 or 5 different owners. The Rush owner Rush Funplex. So we'll work on that. The sock factory, and then there's a property owner to the south. At 1200 East, you've probably seen that project starting. It's fantastic to see that starting to go through. They started construction on that. So they'll be working forward, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. 2500 North and 8th East, they're working on property discussions right now, appraisals, and then they'll move forward to acquisitions here shortly. So they're in conversations with each of the property owners, probably daily, weekly right now. Parks, several things they're doing right now, kind of just prepping the Meadowview Pavilion and a few other things that they're working on. Trails, we met with the county trails. They will be going out, or they already went out to bid on the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. I'm getting that and the rec center confused. But they're doing a feasibility study that's paid for by RAPS for the Bonneville Shoreline Trail between us, Hyde Park, Smithfield, and county property that's kind of in between some of those entities, which is fantastic. That's how we got this RAPS grant, and it'll probably lead to us getting funding from the state to actually implement that once this study is done. So we're working on that right now. Canal Trails, we're having discussions regarding that as well. Those are ongoing. Recreation, they have several events coming up. We'll go over those at the end. There are endless events coming up for recreation because pumpkin days are coming up. Just jumping down through here, I'm just going to jump down to community development. They'll talk about secondary water requirements. Thanks to those who have provided comments on those, and the geologic hazard overlay zone. I think you guys remember what that was about. But Scott's been working hard on both those. We're with the Utah Geologic Survey, getting sample ordinances as to what we can implement. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel or act like we know everything about geology. And so it'll be based on the scientific method there. Economic development, as we mentioned, Rush is coming in, McDonald's will come in. There's a few other businesses that we're talking about. You've probably also seen Cal Ranch, the 2 or 3 other businesses that are coming in on the side of Cal Ranch, which would be great to have those businesses come into that area. And it's mutually beneficial for all businesses in the site to have all those businesses full. Treasurer, she's working with some of the garbage issues, solid waste issues. Human resources, we're just going through the onboarding process, kind of updating that. Recorder, he's prepared all of these different things tonight. So thanks to Scott for all the truth and taxation items. Library, they're working with us on a few different things, and they have an endless amount of events coming up in September, October. So just watch the newsletter for those coming up. There are tons of things going on in the library. Police, we're working, they've hired and Chief will probably give an update on this. Chief worked hard to find a code enforcement officer. We did interviews, hired a new code enforcement officer. That's up to Chief. This new code enforcement officer should do very well. Very organized individual. His name's Chris. I can't remember his last name. Wow. Exactly what he said. Chris. Yeah, he seems like a fantastic hire for the department. The fire department, they've hired 1 or 2 new FTEs in the department. 2 new, so it should be going well. And they're still working on the SAFER grant to hear back on that. And that's the SAFER grant is the grant that adds the additional employee to the fire department, which is a need. Going back to they're working through ways to find additional staffing by thinking outside the box. So thanks to them. Anyway, I jumped through a lot of those pretty quickly. Are there any other questions regarding any of the action items?
Okay, thanks, Alan. I appreciate that. Okay, we'll move on to our action items, beginning with a proclamation honoring Lance Corporal Michael J. Allred and his family. This is a proclamation that we're hoping to give to the family this Friday at a fundraising dinner. Lance Corporal Michael Allred was the first casualty to come out of Cache Valley in combat in 2004, I believe.
Correct.
And so we're just hoping to honor him in this way. Alan, did you want to speak any more to that other than that?
Just we can go over some of the events that are coming up surrounding that.
Okay, sounds great.
There's dinners. There's also the Ride for the Fallen, and we'll probably go over that a little bit more at the end of the meeting. But the Ride for the Fallen is the motorcycle ride. They do a tribute before, like a breakfast over at Elk Ridge Park. And I'm trying to think of the date of that. That is a Saturday. Is that this Saturday? That's this Saturday at Elk Ridge Park. And they ride up to Bear Lake, then they come back. On Sunday night, I think they do a tribute as well, non-denominational tribute that night, recognizing several of the veterans in the community. It's a very well done tribute. And then there's in this proclamation, the mayor will read through, there's several other things that it talks about, tributes to Lance Corporal Allred. So it's a fantastic event though. It's been going on for 10 or 15 years in the community in North Logan. So
Okay, so I'll read that proclamation and then we'll vote on it. Right? We'll read it into the minutes.
reading in the minutes, yeah.
Okay. Whereas Lance Corporal Michael J. Allred, a dedicated and courageous member of the United States Marine Corps, made the ultimate sacrifice for his country on September 6, 2004, while serving in Iraq. And whereas Lance Corporal Allred was the first combat casualty from Cache Valley in the War on Terror, demonstrating unparalleled bravery and commitment to the values of freedom, justice, and service to our nation. And whereas Lance Corporal Allred's service and sacrifice have left an indelible mark on our community, reminding us all of the profound cost of freedom and the extraordinary individuals who serve in defense of our nation. And whereas the Allred family, including his parents, Brett and Zell Allred, have borne the weight of his loss with grace and dignity, embodying the strength and resilience that define a Gold Star family. And whereas in memory of their son, the Allred family established the Lance Corporal Michael J. Allred Foundation, which has generously raised funds to provide scholarships to students at Utah State University, the institution where Michael aspired to further his education. And whereas the foundation also honors all of Cache Valley's military fallen heroes, ensuring their spirit of service and sacrifice are never forgotten, and seeks to support their Gold Star families. Now, therefore, I, Lindsay Peterson, Mayor of North Logan, Utah, do hereby proclaim August 21st, 2024 as a day of remembrance and honor for Lance Corporal Michael J. Allred. Be it further resolved that the city of North Logan recognizes and honors the Allred family for their enduring strength and the profound contributions they have made to our community through the Lance Corporal Michael J. Allred Foundation and the Ride for the Fallen at Elk Ridge Park. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of North Logan to be affixed this 21st of August, 2024. Any comments on that, or I'll entertain a motion?
I don't know how to motion this. I just want to say I'm so grateful that we're gonna have this day honoring them.
Yeah.
This feels, they've done so much. This feels like a really great thing. I don't know how to motion this.
Just a motion to
Proclamation.
Recognize the proclamation.
Recognize the proclamation. Okay. I make a motion to recognize the proclamation honoring Lance Corporal Michael J. Allred and family.
Okay, motion by Emily,
Second.
second by Joni. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, well, let's move on to considering approval of the annual fraud risk assessment report.
Okay, this this is something Scott puts together. I can't take credit for this. This we started about 4 or 5 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. And it became a massive portion of our employee handbook. You could either put it in the city code or employee handbook. We added it to the employee handbook as an appendix, and it's about 60 to 70 pages of that. But what it does is it provides controls. So we reduce the fraud risk. And so basically, Scott's put this together. We've gone through, and you get certain points and point values. You go through this. And these are things that we try to do, things that we try to avoid. Separation of duties. It basically outlines everything through here. It gives us a score, and we have to be within a certain point ratio. So that's essentially what it is, that we've gone through this exercise to make sure that we are limiting and reducing the risk of fraud within our community.
Perfect. 355 is wonderful. So kudos. That's great. Any questions on this?
Number 4, I have a question on, Scott. It just says, are employees and elected officials required to annually commit in writing to abide by a statement of ethical behavior? I don't know how hard that one is to implement, But I actually don't mind that one as an elected official. I'd be happy to do that annually if it, yes, we're 355, but we could be 375, right?
I think Joni refused to sign it last year.
Oh, okay, there we go. That's fine.
Just kidding,
I
for
don't
the
think-
record.
I don't think AI is going to catch your
That was a
sarcasm.
joke, computer. Yeah, that'd be a great one. That seems like low.
To me, that just feels like a low hanging fruit that honestly, I honestly would like to be able to say to constituents, no, I'm happy to sign that, but I'll abide ethically.
Maybe that could be part of well, I guess oath of office is only one time, huh?
Yeah.
Anyway, but that'd be a great annual thing to do, maybe in January. Okay, well, thank you for your hard work on that, Scott. Do I have a motion to
Motion, sure.
approve?
I motion we approve the annual fraud risk assessment report.
Okay, motion by Joni,
I'll second.
second by Kenny. All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Okay, let's move on to consider authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement regarding road improvements along 12th East and 2450 North. Is this a Jordan or an Allen?
Next, I'll take this one.
Okay.
Well, at least I'll go through it relatively quickly. So we mentioned 12th East, where it's coming through. This is all completely on the Campbell property where this is taking place. However, it does approach, the Krebs property, which is on the west side here. And working with them, now this doesn't require any exchange of property or the city purchasing or giving up property. However, there's a portion of the Campbell property that would go to, the Krebs, and then we would provide water and sewer stubs along the south side of the property and along 2500 North. Now, this doesn't formalize these as lots, just to clarify. It's providing water and sewer stubs, so we never have to go in and cut the road after we do this exercise. In exchange, they'll provide a key element of North Logan's trails network. They'll provide the frontage of their property so that we can put in that asphalt path across the north of 2500 North, sorry, the south side, but the north of their property, which is intended to connect all the way from Greenville up to the bench. So
So nice.
it's a key element of our trails network. If you think of North Logan as a giant square, we have 16th East that we've identified, and the county has identified as a key route. 19th North, that goes from Green Canyon down to the city center into the Space Dynamics Lab. And then 200 West and 3100 North are the other sides of that square. 2500 North cuts it right down the middle. And so having a trails network that ties together the community, and the major request on all of our surveys is to have these trails that go across the community. So getting just these key segments installed is fantastic. So this is, I just wanted to bring this before you so you're aware and you can authorize this. We don't want to go and negotiate with individuals and have the council not be aware of things that are taking place.
Okay, council, any questions for Alan on this? Great work on this. These kinds of negotiations aren't always smooth, so I think this is such a big deal to negotiate a win-win.
Yeah, they've been great to work with Krebs on this property to get this squared away.
Okay,
Good job.
Yeah, thanks,
Thanks for all
Alan.
your hard work here.
And Jordan and everyone else.
Everyone who was involved in that. Well, I will make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign an agreement regarding road improvements along 12th East and 2450 North.
okay, motion by Emily. Do I have a second? Okay,
Sure.
second by Joni.
Feels really good, guys.
Any discussion on this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Next is consider authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement regarding property along 200 West, 2400 North.
All right, I can take you through this one. So 2400 North is that road that is kind of a half paved, half dirt road that goes out towards the waste management building on the west. With that waste management building, there's a requirement for them to build that roadway, the dirt road, up to 26 feet. And when they began this process last year, found out that that right of way is too narrow in order to get the needed width in order to hit 26 feet. So through the process of trying to get that to them. There is a sliver of land to the west. You can see that says Logan City property. That was the right of way that they purchased years ago in order for 200 West to go through when this whole segment was in, this whole chunk property was in Logan City boundaries. And so since the land swap, or since the boundary adjustments, that is now inside of our city limits. And so there has been discussions on, we do not need that entire width to build 200 West that the Logan City portion is currently, that the Logan City portion is. We don't need that whole width. And so what we've negotiated with Logan is to give us a sliver on the east side of that. And then we would exchange that with the property owner, the DWA parcel to the east, in order to get the needed width on 2400. Logan City will deal with us as a city directly. And so that's why this agreement would be between us and Logan City. But since that land will go to DWA, DWA will pay the money to Logan City.
But then Logan City would still retain
Yep,
the balance of the property to the west.
correct.
Correct.
And at that reason, we don't need that property now. It is 200 West's corridor. And when that road goes through, we would then, Logan City would most likely give that property over as a match for a project.
For a COG project. 200 West is a regionally significant road, and it doesn't have a cap for funding from the COG. It's supposed to tie from Smithfield down to the south end of Logan at some point. And so what Jordan's talking about is they would come to the table and use that property as a match, which helps in receiving those grants, that COG grant.
Is that unusual for one municipality to own land in another?
Very.
It's just because the boundary changes when they happened. And this used to be all Logan City. Now it's in our city. How that didn't just come to us at that time, we're not sure, but that's how it is.
Well, this looks like you guys have, making lemonade out of those lemons,
Yeah.
and really like to see that.
Now, and with DWA, it works out with them because they can then extend their property to the west, and it's change for property for them. So they see the value in it, and it works out.
Perfect. Well, I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
I motion to authorize the mayor to sign an agreement regarding property along 200 West and 2400 North.
Okay, motion by Emily,
I'll second you.
second by Mark.
Oh, the
Any
slow-
discussion?
The slowness of which you guys,
Okay,
so great.
all in favor?
I
Any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. We'll move on to our work session items, get updates regarding the North Logan City General Plan.
Okay, can you hear me okay? So I just wanted to provide just a quick reminder of our upcoming general plan public workshop, which is going to be on Tuesday, September 3rd from 4 until 7 p.m. That will be held at the Meadowview Pavilion, the new pavilion that was built just to the south of the pickleball courts. And if there is bad weather, we'll plan to move over to the HSC building indoors, but that's, we'll wait and see what the weather looks like. The topic of that workshop is both general plan and city center related, with regards to future land use maps, draft maps that we would like to have some input from the public. And that will kind of look at, from a bird's eye view, land uses and development districts and those types of big building blocks for planning purposes. So again, Tuesday the 3rd, 4 to 7 p.m. We don't anticipate an active role for planning commissioners, city council members, or consultants will be facilitating that discussion, but of course you're welcome to attend if you have the time and would like to participate. Have any questions on that event or what's coming up?
Have we seen an updated map yet based upon our work session?
We have, we're still tweaking it with that consultant. They're preparing that for public consumption. But we don't have a final to print. We anticipate that being early next week.
Good to see it.
Yep.
It was kind of it's really nice to see some progress in this plan. So that was really gratifying. I feel like we're in a good place with our contractors.
Cool.
So, okay. Any other questions on this? Okay. Then let's move on to updates on our water capital improvement projects. Jordan?
All right, just a couple quick updates. Just to keep in mind that the impact fee The impact fee, master fee schedules will come out in October, back to city council for approval at that point. That will be the end of our 90-day waiting period. The division of drinking water that we worked on last time, the loan, there will be additional public hearings in September. And we have already begun on plans for the Sunrise's beginning work on planning for the well, the tank and the distribution lines. The DNR application that we submitted back in May, we found out a couple weeks ago, we were unsuccessful on that, mostly because Salt Lake City ate up every dollar that was available. The BOR grant, we'll find out in October, but we have heard back that that is looking very favorable for funding. That's a planning grant that we can use towards the design of all that infrastructure. The treatment plant, we sent the plans over to the Division of Drinking Water because they will have to have final approval on that, and they are in review now. And we anticipate that to be completed in the next couple weeks, and then we'll send that out to construct or to bid in October. Well, probably November, October. And then, as Alan mentioned, waterline construction, we are beginning up in the canyon on Monday, doing waterline there. And then we have 2 additional water lines that we'll be constructing with the 1200 East project and 2850 project that are needs from that we found in the water master plan. So we'll continue on putting in more water lines.
Awesome. That's great news, Jordan. Thank you. Questions for Jordan? Okay. We'll move on to updates on the Civic Center. Is that what we're calling it? It's just very confusing.
Very
Their
straightforward. We don't
library
have anything else called center.
Or civic or city. I would say it's community center, community.
Community
Yeah,
feels
I'm
better to me. but-
worried about AI. That was sarcasm again on my part. We can talk about that. I already went through some updates on this, but really right now what we're looking at is you've seen all the progress out here, the updates. We'll do some minor updates in this room still going forward. We want to increase some of the transparency items for people at home while they're watching live on YouTube to be able to see the screen and also see the council as well. So we're still working through some bugs on that. And so we'll look at that. But then after that, it's really just a lot of fundraising at this point to shore up the last portion of that funding for the community center area. But sorry, those are just the very brief updates.
Okay. We'll probably have more updates as that gets going in earnest, but we've resumed our weekly meetings, just so you know, and we'll keep you updated on that. Okay, let's get our reports from our city officers. Chief Thompson, you want to start us off?
Light of some of the earlier conversation, looks like that's on. Just to give you a quick update, 6 months through the year. And you all still receive by email the report, right? So just to kind of recap that, this year, fire department and EMS, 537 calls, compared to 484 at this time last year, which is about 11% increase. And, you know, in North Logan's area, last year it was 80% medical. This year you're 84%. Couple of questions too about, you know, goodwill calls. So a lot of times people ask about the good intent calls and the service calls. There are people, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, that will call and say, hey, I just can't get my husband up off the ground. I need help. We'll usually categorize those there. If that changes to a transport or a more serious medical problem, that would end up in the rescue EMS. So those do happen. You know, right this year so far, about 30 of those, if you were to combine service call or good intent. And in North Logan, if elderly calls and says, hey, I need help, I can't get my CO detector to shut off, I need help. The fire department responds to those as well and helps those. So those are also in that category. And I think that, yeah, I think in terms of call volume, you know, I don't really anticipate that to change much. I see us ending, you know, probably 10, 11, 12% over last year. That's been pretty status quo in this zone so far. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that all goes. And let's see what else. And then last night in Logan's council, we did just adjust our fee schedule for fire standbys, medical supplies, The state rate changed for transports in the EMS fund. So all those will just be utilized here in this zone through the, so, and I'm happy to share that ordinance that passed last night with Logan's council, since it does affect the North Logan citizens. So all
Okay.
in all, we wish supplies and medications didn't go up. So.
Yeah, well, I know you responded to a fire on Sunday in my neighborhood, so, and it was really rapid response and took care of everything, so we really appreciate you guys.
Good. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and knock on wood, hopefully we've made it through the worst of, grass fire season. We made it through fireworks, so hopeful, we're hopeful, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Chief. We appreciate
Thank you. Okay.
Chief Goodrich.
We've had a busy week this last little bit. Many of you probably saw the bomb threat that came in on Sunday morning to Walmart. That one actually came in through the FBI National Threat Operations Center. Just after 1 a.m, we were notified after they did their threat assessment on it. And we started working on it at about 2:30 in the morning. Through that process, we were able to go down and talk with Walmart. They evacuated their employees and we had the store closed from about 3:30 until 10 o'clock. In that process, they identified an IP address and said, here's the address. And we were able, through warrants and the investigative process, identify the property owner, identify the suspect involved in that, and make the arrest on that by 10 on that. So it was a minor disruption for people, but better to be on the safe side. And quite a fantastic finish on that, I guess, time-wise, to try to clear that up on that. We've also this week, like I said, we hired our code enforcement guy, Chris Balschweiler. He's going to be fantastic. He wants to run with it. He's already walked over and met with Scott a couple times now, and is trying to get the workflow together on how to make it successful. And so I think that's going to be a fantastic addition for us.
Chief, that's a part-time position, is that right?
That is part-time. There's a lot of potential there, depending on how things go. With that, we're starting to feed just a few little complaints right now, and he's starting to get his feet wet in the Google Drive and look at what has been done and what's been documented so far. And so we're anticipating that that's going to be a good fit. Tomorrow we have a meeting with Alan and Scott and Marcus, trying to get everybody on the same page with that and what we're going to do there. We've also excited to announce that we've hired 2 officers with experience. One is working at Ogden PD right now, and his last day will be Friday. And then he starts with us on Monday on that. Rich Shuck is his name. He's got 13 years experience in law enforcement, and he also retired from the military as a lieutenant colonel. And in the twilight of his career, said he wanted to work for a smaller agency and put his experience to use. So we're excited to have him. And then Jason Harris is coming back to us. He's got 17 years experience now, and we're excited to welcome him back on that. And other than that, like I said, we've been busy trying to keep on top of the calls that are coming in.
Okay, thanks, Chief. We appreciate you. All right, let's just go Jordan. Nothing. Scott. Marie. Okay, Scott.
The 3 of you that will be going to Utah League, I'll reach out to you, just make sure that I have the correct days at the Holiday Inn Express for you.
Okay. I may have to adjust a little bit. Like I might not stay through that. What does it end? Is it Friday or is it Thursday?
Thursday. it
Okay,
ends.
perfect.
It's different this year.
Okay.
Normally it does end on Friday.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Alan?
Just the upcoming events, jumping down through here. We already talked about league. Just little things you may want to be aware of, like Green Canyon Homecoming Parade. It's on September 11th. I still haven't heard back on the exact time. But that usually goes around down 2850 North, that road that dissects the park, down by the high school. Then Cache Valley Remembers, we went over that. There's a lot of things about that in the newsletter. That's going to be a major event. We anticipate probably around 30,000 people coming to that event. But it's the tribute that we've talked about to 9/11. But it's so much more than that. It's kind of a venue. How would you even describe it? Where they go through kind of a maze is what it looks like from overhead, but they go through and every wall has screens and tributes and everything else to those that were involved in 9/11.
And
The
it's
first-
chronological, so it takes you through the time.
And it
on
brings
that
it up
day.
to date. When you talk to people in the room, they kind of ask people to raise their hands. And I think I'm getting old because when they go through like a school, no one was alive for 9/11. And so it's something where they learn about that event. It's really well done. But then on top of that, a lot of the first responders are involved locally. And they'll do like field of flags, a touch a truck, some of the other logistics involved in that. And they'll have fun runs and other things associated with the event. So it goes from 9/11 through 9/14. So that I think that's a Wednesday through Saturday. So just be aware of that. That a lot of the school classes will go during school, but then it's a good opportunity to go down at any time during there and have a tour through this entire thing at the HSC. Very good venue for that, and it's great to have North Logan involved in that. The other big ones coming up, obviously there's some smaller events coming through there, like Movie Night at the Library, Dino Fest, but then we hit the pumpkin events. So just put those on your calendar. Tentatively is just a lot of the events coming up for that entire month. The main pumpkin walk is October 10th through 15th. So just put that on your calendar as well. Several things. Then we'll see if we end up doing the pumpkin drop. That's still in the works. We're not mechanical engineers, Kenny, so we couldn't figure out how to do this. But it's getting a crane and getting a giant pumpkin and dropping it on a car. So that may be part of the events this year. We'll see. We couldn't figure out how to release the mechanism last year because all they have is a hook. So we weren't smart enough, but we talked with Zach Humes, who's over the ASME department. He laughed. He's like, it's very simple. And so they'll probably help us out with that. But those are some of the events coming up. Brings a lot of sense of community, all those different things that take place during those months.
Okay, thanks, Alan. All right. We have any gentlemen over here? Anything you guys, any business you had? We're ahead of schedule, so my goodness. Let's not let that lie. Anything from the council?
Can I just ask a couple of go backs? Jordan, with the water update, I thought last council meeting, we approved the beginning of the construction of the water tank, the new water tank. I didn't see that, or did I miss that in the updates?
So we didn't, what we did is we approved basically a go ahead for the engineers to begin that. So
Okay.
it wasn't we're still in the planning process. We had to get that grant in order to pay the engineers to design that tank. And so
I
that's what
gotcha.
they're starting.
I must be misremembering. I thought it had already been designed and we were
No.
approving.
Yeah, that's
Go
what
ahead and
we're
start.
moving towards.
Okay.
right now.
I got you.
Jordan was probably over promising and underperforming. It's of the department. So
That's how water is.
That's all right.
I can't wait to see this AI minutes. It's gonna be good. Oh yeah, go ahead.
To go back, I'm just asking questions to seek to understand. I'm not trying to sound critical on this, but I understand that the fire and the police calls have gone up with population growth in the city. So that all totally makes sense to me, but I guess I'm wondering, the tax revenue should also be going up with population too. So, we're talking about increasing the tax rate to cover the increased budget. You gave the numbers, 250% increase in the last 8 years on the police, but I guess I'm wondering, the call rate goes up, but shouldn't the tax rate be going up commensurate with the population increase to cover that?
The tax base, right?
Yeah, right. The tax base and thus the tax overall
Mark's
tax
correcting the correct
revenue. Yeah,
terminology.
thank you.
That's tough. Tax rate, yeah. The tax rate only goes up with things that you authorize. The tax base, the overall
Yeah.
amount we get from taxes.
Yeah,
In a general year, if we do nothing, we still see an increase in property taxes from new growth. That's it. So the new people moving into the community. One key element though, when we were going through this last time, and we've talked about this in the general plan, the previous city council and planning commission, this became such an issue at that time that Mark brought up regarding are certain areas being disproportionately taxing or creating an unfair burden on the police department? And really there are areas in the community that have a much higher area and need for response. And so that goes back to planning principles. And so as we're going through the general plan, keep that in your mind. There are certain elements of planning for housing. Back in the day, the old notion was, well, there's more calls in areas that have like apartments and things like that, because there's more people there. Yeah, that makes sense, but that's not the case at all. You'll have much higher call volume to certain areas of the city, even if they're lower density,
Per capita.
medium density per capita, and you can have a very high density area that has very few calls. And so it really goes back to sound planning, how you go about the community to not put a burden, unfair burden on the police and fire department.
So in the planning process, how do we identify those higher disproportionate areas and look for reasons?
What we did in the past, and we don't have to do this again, but we should probably look into this as we go through the planning, is identify, get with the police department, have them identify some of those areas where there is a high disproportionate response, and then just look at the characteristics. There are certain elements of certain apartment complexes in certain areas of higher density where, one, it may not be as high quality. Number two, it may not have on-site management. That's not always the case. Some of them heavily scrutinize the tenants when they come in. It's amazing how often I get an email for an application for someone who wants to live in a certain apartment complex. And it'll ask, do I know this person and can I refer them? So they're actually checking references for several different places within the community. Things like that go a long way, though. Having a very good population of tenants, the less transient they are. So the more we can make these areas like a home. That was when we started looking into the 3-story requirement for townhomes, because then they have to come in, build a townhome that's more of a home than an apartment that will last 6 months. It turns that into more of a 4 to 5 year location for a certain person. So all these elements we need to look into, though, because it's an unfair burden on the police and fire department if we go about this the wrong way.
It's the burdens on the other citizens because they're the one paying for it.
Exactly.
And maybe we need to look at a way to address that in our general plan. Because I don't recall a point in our general plan that talked about specifically those types of services and mitigating those disproportionate calls through planning, which we look for
Go
some
ahead, Chief.
information on that, Scott.
So at least from the fire EMS side, that report is provided quarterly, right? We pull that data. So I think from the fire EMS side, that has been dealt with. Every quarter, we pull every run in the district. And it is clear there are probably a dozen high users, and if I'm not misunderstood, you actually bill for that now, right, Alan? And from that report for those
Yeah,
disproportionate?
they provide something to us every year. From that, we use the ordinance to devise the master fee schedule to devise the disproportionate business license fee. However, it doesn't address residential properties. It only addresses businesses.
And it's pretty
at this
rare
time.
that it's residential. Typically, it's like the large, like Maple Springs, Pioneer Valley Lodge, Walmart, those types of places.
For
usually.
fire and EMS.
For fire.
But not
Police is gonna be
facilities.
Yeah,
different.
and it's quarterly. So I just want to make sure I thought that we had that report quarterly for you, so that if you needed to, you could address that because it's pulled by address.
And it may be helpful to have, you crunch the numbers and maybe give some of your thoughts as to
For sure.
the motives or the reasoning behind those disproportionate calls. And then we can look at planning options to see if they can be addressed. That's different from the disproportionate fee side. We didn't look at the planning side to see.
The planning side, though, if you look into it, that's a good point, because one thing that they've looked to in the past, certain senior living centers they don't always have a higher call volume. What we've noticed, though, is independent living we have to be very careful with.
Yeah, because
Independent living.
they can't by law help them up.
Yes, and so it becomes an area of frequent call demand, and very taxing on a fire department.
Well,
Kind of an unfair amount, in my opinion.
And when we identify those, actually, it can be a great opportunity for education. When we see those, when they spike, like like assisted living or independent living, a lot of the times they'll have a turnover in staff. And so they can lift with proper procedure. And if they're utilizing partner lift, like lifting in groups so they don't get hurt. So we'll go back in, provide education, which actually improves their numbers. So it's kind of a win-win. It takes the burden off of the fire EMS, but also helps them, you know, in terms of, oh, okay, we can, you know, empowers them to be able to actually do their jobs at times.
Part of my understanding is that while you could probably teach them how to do it, the federal law on independent living prevents them from doing it because it turns them into assisted living factors, and therefore it affects their federal and state healthcare licenses, not the backs of their employees. And that's the reason why they call you instead of helping someone out.
Good to know. Some good attorney insight there. Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. So sorry, I just want to
Okay.
make sure.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And we'll get with you on that data. We might need to fine tune that, but that's a good point. I think that we need to bring that up and we can talk about that through the general plan process.
Okay.
We've talked a little bit about that, about fire, but we need to go into the characteristics that we talked about beforehand. Basically just pulling the data of where are we seeing these and what is the
Yeah.
common characteristics of these areas.
And I think you guys have seen this. It's always going to be butting up against moderate income housing and more housing, You know, we're always going to have that pressure from the state. So it's just going to be kind of doing that dance between both of those things. So, okay. Anything else? Then I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Emily,
Second.
second by Joni. All in favor?
I
I
Any opposed? Okay, motion's adjourned. Meeting is adjourned.